I know. And we're live. Okay, here we are. Hello, everyone. Happy Webinar Wednesday to you, wherever you are hailing from. I see a lot of folks have joined us already, which is so exciting. Thank you for choosing to spend your time, this little hour of your day, with Team Lulu. So as you go in the chat, let us know where you're from, what time it is, how your day is going. So if this looks a bit startling to you, then you are a normal human being, and it probably should. So I'll go through and introduce everyone who's going to be walking through this with us today. So I am Chelsea. I am the dolphin today. We also have Lauren with us, who is our social media manager. She will be monitoring the chat, and she is, I don't even really know how to describe that, face on top of a face. If you're familiar with The Office, you may have seen that harrowing image from one of the Office episodes. And then we have, last but not least, Paul Homday, who is our content marketing manager, who will be walking through this presentation with me today.
Hey, everyone.
Hey. Oh, Lauren, do you want to say hey?
Hi, everyone.
A couple housekeeping things before we get started. So this recording, if you join late, you won't hear this, but if you have to leave early, the recording will be sent to everyone. It will also be posted to our YouTube channel. So if you, again, have to dip out early, or if you come in late, no worries there. We've got you. We'll also be taking questions at the end. So this webinar is to introduce you to what makes a good cover, and then walk you through how to recreate that using our Canva Cover Tool. So we're really excited about this integration, and we will get into that a little bit later in the presentation. Oh man, you guys are joining us from all over. That is great to see. So again, thank you so much. We will go ahead and get started. So I am going to share my screen and pull up my presentation that I have for y'all today. So Paul or Lauren, let me know when you're able to see this and if it looks good. Can you guys see that cool cat?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Always. All right. Okay, let's get covered with Canva. It's a pretty clever title, we thought. All right, so we'll start it off the typical way we always do. For anyone who's not familiar with Lulu, what we do and who we are, Lulu is a real word. It's not just a funny thing to say, or yoga pants. It's a remarkable person, object, or idea. We were founded in 2002 by Bob Young from Red Hat Notoriety. Our publishing platform is free to use, so you can publish on Lulu completely free. You only pay for the books that you want or the books that you need when you need them. We published over 1 million books, so I think that makes us a little bit qualified to talk about good covers, what makes a good cover and what makes a bad cover. And we have over $107 million, this number, every time I say it, I get choked up. A lot of money. We pay out money regularly to our authors in author revenue. We have some of the highest revenue splits in the industry. So if you are interested in making money off of your self-published book, check us out. So we've got our mission statement here, which is Lulu is dedicated to making the world a better place, one book at a time, through sustainable practices, innovative print-on-demand products, and a commitment to excellent service. So a little bit more about those sustainable practices we mentioned are that we are a B Corp. So if you're not familiar with B Corps are for-profit companies certified by the nonprofit B Lab to meet rigorous standards of social and environmental performance, accountability, and transparency. So since this slide was made, I'm sure there are more than 2,100 B Corps working together. But if you're not familiar with the B Corp movement or any B Corp organizations, definitely take a look. These are for-profit companies who are really working towards making the world better for Mother Nature, for this planet A that we have. There's no planet B. So if you're interested in sustainability on this planet we share, definitely check that out and see if there are any that you can support. Or just publish with Lulu. All right, so I already introduced us, but if you did not know, we're not bots, we're real people, despite what our icons look like right now. I'm not a dolphin, I am a human. Paul is not an eagle. He is a human man. So this is us, and we're going to dive into it now. So here's what we're all here for today. What makes a good cover? So if you joined us for our last webinar, we had Bailey Designs Books on. She did an amazing job of walking through as a cover designer, what she does, what her process is, what makes a good cover and how she works through that, what to look for, and what to look for when working with a cover designer. So I just want to plug that. If you didn't see it, it is on our YouTube channel. Definitely check it out. And what we're going to talk about today are all things that you can apply to a book cover to make it good, to make it successful. However, I do want to put the caveat or strongly recommend that you do work with a cover designer if possible. This new tool that we're introducing today makes it really easy to make a beautiful cover on your own with pretty limited design knowledge, as I can attest to. But I would say if you do have the budget, if you're able, work with a graphic designer, work with a cover designer, even if it's just to kind of show what you've done in Canva and see what their thoughts are or get notes. It's always the good idea to bring in a professional at that step. All right, so what makes a good cover? Well, let's start by what makes a bad cover. So for this webinar, myself, Jasmine, and our email marketing manager, and Paul, we all made covers that unfortunately aren't too far off of what we've seen in the, over 1 million books that we published at Lulu. We've seen some things that are pretty, in some accounts disturbing, sometimes just off the mark, misguided. So we just kind of pulled from that inspiration and created our own. So this is the first one that we're going to talk about. This is a bad cover. I don't think I need to tell anybody that, but it's surprising how many people, how many authors can kind of fall into this trap of creating covers that just don't really hit the mark. So this one, obviously, a couple of things are the title is incredibly distracting. You don't really need it that many times unless you're kind of going for that theme. The image is, I would say repulsive, but I don't want to go that strong because it's also kind of funny. But it's just very intimidating. Who knows what this book is about? Reflections. And then you have this image of Dwight from The Office with the face on his face. A book of reflections to reflect on, which is like the title again, even though we have it 100 times. The spine text is the wrong way. If that's on a bookshelf, it's not going to flow with the other books. It'll make it stand out like a sore thumb. And then, of course, the back matter is terrible. It does nothing to serve the book or move the story forward in any way. It doesn't capture anyone's attention, and the barcode is totally worthless. So the reason that we're showing this and the reason that it's so important for any independent authors or self-published authors to really understand the value of a good cover is because when you think about self-publishing and sort of the negative connotations that have gone along with it in the past or that people have associated with it, bad covers is always one of those things. Poor editing is one of those things. Formatting, things like that. We've talked about those in previous webinars, but covers are just, it can be one of the telltale signs of someone who is independently published or someone who just hasn't done their research into what makes a good cover. So even though this is kind of funny, we were joking around with it, unfortunately, we see things like this all the time. And so this is an example of a not great cover, again, because the title is ridiculous. The image doesn't make any sense. There's no cohesion there. The back cover is completely wasted and doesn't help at all. So this is just one example. And again, that spine text is flipped around. But we're not going to stop with one. We've got another one for you. And hopefully your eyes aren't bleeding yet. Paul Hobday, what are we looking at here?
That's rough. So yeah, when Chelsea asked me if I would be interested in designing a bad cover, I pretty much jumped out of my seat because it's the only kind of cover I know how to design. I don't think I've ever made a book cover that I would be happy with looking at again. So what I did here is you can kind of see my 4th of July inspiration. I started with a color palette of red, white, blue, and gold, and my theme of birds. What I've done poorly is, well, to everything, but from the get-go, the first big problem is the layering. So you'll see the front cover, I have 2 different birds, I have an American flag, I have some text, I have the blue. Each of those elements are added to the cover when I'm creating it independently, and they're layered on top of each other, which is kind of fine as long as you flatten out your file so that it's one layer when we go to print it. I didn't do any of that. What I did was I messed around with opacities so that the bird and the flag and the eagle are all a little bit opaque and can be seen through a little bit, so the blue shows through them. And it's made it very clear that everything is layered on top of each other. Even if for some reason you thought this cover looked good and you wanted to go to print with it, it would look awful printed. The layering would just be atrocious. You honestly wouldn't be able to be certain from the file that it would look the same printed, because the opacities might kind of bleed together a little bit, and your eagles, the strip of blue from the flag and the eagle might kind of bleed in with the blue from the background and just make that whole looking like he's wearing a mask or something. So that's the real first problem, is that I just have too many elements and I've layered them really poorly. The second big problem is a little less obvious, and so I added all those stars to make sure it was really clear. But what I've done is I've created a spine that just is not really a spine so much as a huge problem waiting to happen. Biggest problem is that it's a different color. Front cover is blue, back cover is red, spine is white. So that might look really cool when you're thinking about it. You're imagining your cover is going to have this bright white spine, but then the covers themselves are going to be different, so it's going to be a little jarring and can kind of catch some attention. The problem is when it gets printed. So anything, any book, even a traditionally published book, is going to get printed and trimmed, and there's always a variance. We ask for about 1/8 of an inch in variance. Some printers go even up to 1/4 inch. It means that everything can shift just a little bit, and it might seem minor, but 1/8 of an inch of shifting could cause some of that spine to come on the front or back cover and just show up this tiny little white line that is, again, might seem very minor, but it is very unattractive, and it gives that sort of unprofessional look. So it's always important to make sure your spine matches or kind of dovetails together with the front and back cover to create a cohesive cover. This cover I've created is very much a cover in 3 parts. It's not cohesive. Moving on, my ISBN on the spine, not sure what I was doing there. I also managed to put it on top of whatever that disaster of text is on the back cover. Swear to God, if anyone can read that, I'm impressed. I just sat at my keyboard and hit some keys for a while. I think I talked a little bit about lying birds being dinosaurs or something.
Yeah, I can see where all I can see is just feathery liars something. What are they doing? What are those feathery liars doing?
Don't trust birds. The moral here is, one, I've written way too much. It doesn't pertain to the story, assuming it doesn't pertain to the story. Even if it did, I'd need to tighten it up. It needs to be much shorter. And I'll talk more about this in the back cover section. And then I layered the ISBN barcode over it, which means that some of the text is cut off. I've used a font that no one ever should use. I mean, like, maybe if you have an apothecary and you want to make a sign for over the door or something, that's an okay font, but like, I don't like it. So the moral here is to use easy to read fonts. Make sure, you've got images that aren't layered like crazy. And one final note, and it's something that you wouldn't be able to tell just by looking at this, and it probably holds true for Jasmine's cover, the previous one. The picture of the parrot that I've got and the image of Dwight on that first one, probably copyright protected. I know the parrot is because I went and found a copyright protected image. So be very careful when you're using images to make sure that you have the rights to use them. That doesn't necessarily come through when you're looking at the cover, but it is something to be aware of.
Yes, that's so true. That's a great point. And then one other thing that I wanted to note was that the text, I mean, you could see the by your name here. This is like a choose your own adventure that Paul made. But so the by your name here, and you can see the text is grainy. And so the image quality, of course, and the text and all of these things you want to use, you want to make sure they're going to come through really crisp. So we recommend 300 DPI for image quality and things like that. But to Paul's note about the copyright images, that's really important to consider. And, when you're out there looking for stock images, just be aware that you could see it on another book. So unless you're getting original art from a designer, then there's a chance that you could find that same stock image, that someone else is using for their cover as well. But I will say for all of the images that you have access to in Canva, copyright isn't an issue and you can use those without being worried. But that's a great point. So thank you, Paul, for walking us through.
And to what you said, Chelsea, about the graininess of the text, to achieve really poor unreadable text, what I did was I exported my cover from Canva. At that point, the resolution was what I wanted it to be. I saved it through formats. I saved it, I touched it up in Photopea because, why not open it in something else? And then I opened it in Adobe, and then I saved it as a PDF, and then I converted it back to a JPEG and back to a PDF. So the moral being, you could have everything set right, but if you're messing with the formats and the file types a lot, it can degrade the file.
Yes. And so I'll also add with that, proof copy. So we always recommend this with Lulu, with any projects that you create, especially if you're designing your own cover. I mean, even if you're having someone else design it for you, proof copy. It's so important to get that first copy in your hands to make sure, the layering isn't a problem. The transparency isn't a problem. The spine, I mean, that variation is so narrow. So just make sure that you get that proof copy and then it looks exactly how you want, even if this is a representation of what you would like. So, I mean, hey, to each his own. All right, so these are 2 bad covers. We walked through some of the things that were bad about them. Again, we had some fun with this, and we'll go through one more and kind of recreate it towards the end in Canva. But these are things that, we had fun with, but we see them all the time. Poor font choices. One thing that a lot of authors kind of fall into that we've seen is just picking too many elements for the cover. You're trying to pull out every theme and every little Easter egg that you have in the story because you know that it will make sense to the reader at the end. But that's really not what the cover is doing. It doesn't need to walk through every single element of the story. So just highlighting those main themes, which Paul kind of failed to do here. So, well, I guess it's about birds. So who knows? Okay. All right. So elements of a great cover. So we're going to go over the 3 key elements of a great cover here. And we're going to start off with understanding genre expectations. So genre expectations are the visual cues that let a reader know the basic genre your book falls into and any prevalent themes that will occur. So the key to remember here, and I know that this can sound like an oxymoron or sort of one of those frustrating throwaway phrases, but blend in, but stand out. So, you may have heard people say, to break the rules, you need to learn them first. And so it kind of goes with that mode of thinking that, like, once you understand that for your genre, I will take the first. So for your genre, once you understand what the expectations are, then you can play around with those and make sure that you're doing something that the readers will understand what it is, but also your book will be unique to them and be compelling for them to pick up. So the 3 books that I have on this slide, 3 different genres. And I'm sure if I said to you, tell me which one is romance, tell me which one is, self-improvement, and tell me which one is sci-fi, you would know that. You would be able to tell immediately. Because, I mean, the first one, the kiss quotient, obviously the title is indicative there as well. But, you can see this is going to have to do with math. This is going to have to do with formulas. Then obviously there's a couple getting together. You can see them in the corner. So she pulls out, I mean, not only with the title, but with the cover as well, reinforcing what she really wants the reader in a glance to understand, because that's what your cover is doing. It's letting your reader, your potential audience understand at a glance, I'm interested in this. I want to know more about it. This is the book I'm looking for, whether they're looking for a genre-specific read or just browsing a bookshelf. I mean, I would imagine that everyone listening to this has probably at some point in their life picked up a book that maybe wasn't exactly what you're looking for, but there was something about the cover that drew you in, that compelled you. And that's what we really want to try to recreate at the end of this webinar. So again, moving to Snow Crash. So this one, I mean, immediately you can tell this is going to be a sci-fi novel. It has like all the elements that you might imagine. It's really, the typography is really bold. There's not a ton going on. I mean, you could argue the background has several elements to it, but it's all really cohesive. It's not distracting. You see it all as one piece. And then, of course, the power of now. We'll go into palettes and using different colors to showcase different feelings or emotions. But I mean, in this book by Eckhart Tolle, you can see that he's doing that. I mean, these colors are sort of calming, but also with the yellow, it's a bit empowering, a bit more vibrant as well. And then again, you can tell immediately that this is going to be a nonfiction book. So again, the first element that you need to understand when you're creating a cover is what genre is your book in? And then outside of that, what do people expect when they look for books in that genre? So we always recommend to folks that when you're working on your book cover or when you're working on your book, regardless of, if you're even at the cover stage yet, go to a bookstore, go online, be browsing other books in your genre to see, what you see over and over again, what really works for that genre, what people are drawn to, and then, see how you can play around with that and make it work for your story uniquely. So again, first thing to think about, genre expectations, what genre is your book in, and how can you play around with that?
Sorry, my mic was off. Next up is typography. So this is the text on your cover. And as Chelsea was just saying, it's important to meet expectations based on your genre and your reader. So it's using my example of a bad cover, make sure it's readable, make sure it's very clear what the text says, and that it gets the point across. So I love this Dune cover. Now it's a little tricky because we're all kind of familiar with Dune. It's been something in culture for a long time. But this still, if you didn't know anything about the story, you're, first time in a bookstore ever, which, sorry if that's your first time in a bookstore, but if you go into a bookstore for the first time ever and you see this on a shelf, you know a couple of things right away. One, it's about sand and dunes because there's sand dunes and it's written. There's a single character walking, which kind of gives this lonely feel. But look at the font. Look at how mechanical it is almost. It really tells you that this is going to be a science fiction story, that there's going to be something kind of otherworldly there. And if we compare that to Kathy Park Hong's cover of Minor Feelings, like the little bits of fire, the dark, around the edges of the lettering, it really kind of gives a sense of almost motion and intensity. So it's really be careful and be conscientious about how you pick those fonts and what you choose to use, and then sizing. I really like how in Bangkok Awakes we have the slightly different font for title and author, but the sizing too. They're just a little bit different sizes, and they're spaced very similarly, so that it almost looks like you're reading it all kind of runs together, but then it differentiates as well. So those subtle things can really make something stand out. And that's the key thing of a cover is, like Chelsea said, meet expectations, but also stand out. So you want someone who looks at your book and 10 other books in the genre to look at yours a second time, to pause and say, what is making this one a little different? I would also strongly suggest looking around the internet at any good typography information. Our blog has a couple articles I've written about fonts and choices, and making sure you're picking kind of the most common based fonts for your genre. If you're writing in romance, use Saban. If you're writing a fantasy novel, use Baskerville. You don't have to break the mold entirely. It's kind of about how you use those things that fit the expectations.
Yeah, thank you, Paul. And also one thing I want to note here, and this could kind of go with any of these elements, but theme and variation is also something to think about here. And with Dune, that's a great example because, as Paul said, I mean, this is, been around for a while. There's a series involved. But if you look at those books, every single one, doesn't matter if it's the first one or the second or third, you'll know that it goes within that family because he continues to draw on the same sort of elements, the same typography, all of that. So he really stays, with the same theme, but has continual reinventions of the variation, which really keeps making it exciting and then helps the reader know, okay, so this is a Frank Herbert novel. This is within the Dune franchise, if you will. I know that's not the right word, but using that. So when you're thinking about if it's your first novel and you have the idea of creating a series out of it or having a continuation of that, then keep in mind that the palette you start with and the typography and the images you use for the first one should have some sort of iteration on that as you move through the series. So just a little note on that. All right, so the last thing that we're going to talk about here before I think the next one is back cover that we'll move on to. So compelling images and color palette. So we talked about this a little bit with the theme and variation and when we're looking at the previous examples. But the images you use on your book need to be intentional and high quality. So I think that those two things are so important because, as I mentioned, we see so many authors that you're so excited about your book, you're so excited about everything going on in it, it's hard to pick which images you want to use to convey the overall story. So be really intentional with your images. Less is more is something that Bailey talked about a lot when she was doing her webinar. So I'd like to just echo that as a reminder. And I think that the three examples we have here are all really, really good illustrations of doing that less is more, but still getting a lot across in a very small little piece of real estate when you think about it. So the reader should be drawn in and compelled to read your book, to learn why you chose the images you did and what the story will ultimately tell. So in addition to that, choosing the correct color palette can express to the reader what feelings and emotions they can experience while reading your story. So just starting at the top over here, The Day It Rained Forever is by Lynette Greenfield. If you are a fan or friend of Lulu, you probably heard us talk about her. She's a Lulu author who has had a ton of luck. Not only is she an incredibly talented author, but she also designs her own covers. She's a bit of a unicorn in that way, because we really typically, as I started off this webinar saying, do not recommend to authors to create your own cover. Maybe you're too close to it. Maybe you don't have the design savvy, or, you know, maybe you've just written the book and you're exhausted and you're like, I just need to finish this up. I don't really care what the cover looks like. All of those things can really lead to doing yourself a disservice at the end, when you're ultimately trying to sell the book. Lynette Greenfield is a bit of an anomaly in that way. But this book, The Day It Rained Forever, you can tell that this story is going to be heartbreaking, right? So, I mean, she has this one image of this woman who's in the fetal position. You can clearly see the title. She has this kind of neutral palette playing off of the Little Mermaid tale that this woman has. So you can see that, it's very clearly illustrated. There are going to be glimmers of hope, literally the bottom of her, I was going to say outfit, but there's only the bottom. So, but there is sort of that shimmer there. So you can kind of tell from this that it's going to be heartbreaking. There's going to be hard things that go through it, but there's going to be some glimmers of hope throughout it that hopefully, will resolve in the end and help get the reader through. So Lynette does an amazing job. One image that's stunning. You're immediately drawn to it. You want to know more. And then you can clearly see the author name and title. It's really well done there. So the Guncle is a really fun one that I picked out. I think this was off of a top summer reads list, but you can see it has all those beach vibes, a fun beach read with this guy where, leading these children. He's drinking a cocktail. He looks so glamorous. He's got these kids behind him that are reading and a dog. So, I mean, you can kind of tell that it's going to be a fun story that, how did he end up with these children? Like why, he has to be the steward of them or has to watch out for them. What is that about? Why is this happening? You can tell whatever is going to happen, it's going to be fabulous. The colors are really fun. So again, just a really great kind of beach read. You can tell it's probably not going to be too heavy. Although of course there will be an arc like all stories have, hopefully. And then this last one.
Kelsey?
Yeah.
Can I jump in on the Guncle really quick?
Yes.
So that one's also a really great example. I love that you chose this cover. That's a really great example of how publishers use covers as kind of subtle coding to tell readers what type of book they're looking for. Right now, the biggest trend in covers in the fiction publishing industry is illustrated covers for romance novels. Any romance novel that is a contemporary romance novel that is published in the last year and a half has this bright poppy colored illustrated style cover art. And you can tell. I was in Barnes & Noble yesterday and I walked in and there was a table of all of these. I didn't even need to read the sign on the table to know that every single book on that table was a romance novel, because the cover is kind of setting the reader's expectation for exactly what they're looking for. And it's a great example of how publishers use a set or trending style of a cover art to kind of tell readers what to expect from a book before they even pick it up off a shelf.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, again, goes back to why it's so important to at least familiarize yourself with the trends. Like, again, whether you go the route of making your own cover or you work with a designer, be familiar with what the trends are and what's emerging so that you don't, stick out like a sore thumb and your book really fits in with the genre it's intended to. And again, you can play around with that and let the reader know what's going on in the book and what they can expect. So thank you, Lauren, for hopping in there. And then the last one here is Oh by Stephen Carroll. And this one, I know nothing about this book, but when I was researching or looking for images to put on this slide, I was so compelled by this. I love it. I mean, I've never, well, I won't say never, but, I haven't seen too many books that kind of have that poster. Looks like it's peeling off the wall, obviously bold typography. And then this image of this woman peeking out from behind. So again, with the color palette, it's dark, you can tell that there's going to be something in there that may be suspenseful, dramatic. But I love how compelling it was. Everything about that really plays together and gives you that feel of revealing something. You're going to obviously be learning, maybe a hidden story, some secrets involved. So I just thought, even though, again, I didn't read the synopsis of this book, I know nothing about it, but the cover is indicating to me what I can expect. And I just thought that was so well done. I just thought it was so compelling. So wanted to throw that on here. as well. Okay, so those are the 3 top elements of a great cover. So just to recap, we'll go to the beginning. Genre expectations, understanding what they are, how to blend in and stand out, clear and effective typography, and compelling images and color palette. I'll also say if you're kind of not sure where to start with your color palette or the emotions you want to bring forward, Pinterest is a great way to do that. If you want to type in feelings or emotions, they have some really good color boards. Paul or Lauren, hop in if you have any other suggestions of kind of how to get your color palette right. But there are a ton of resources online if you just do a quick search for that.
Oh, all right. Back covers. So I mentioned this briefly when I was looking at my kind of crappy cover, but it's always important to think about your cover holistically. It's often thought about in 3 parts: the back cover, the spine, and the front cover, but it really should be kind of holistic. And these covers I give off as examples to just kind of the 2 on the left are both Lulu books and fiction. And then on the right, I have the back cover of Greenlight Your Book by Brooke Warner, which is a very good book about self-publishing. So if anyone hasn't read that, I do suggest it. I picked hers, and I say this because I picked it because I was going to tell people to go look at it. But if you look at the whole cover, you can see how she's blended that background across the spine and front, and it kind of really works holistically very well. I've listed 6 things at the bottom there that are generally included in the cover. Tagline, that's often something that, applies to the story but isn't the title. So like if anyone wants to shout this out in the chat, if I say, Game of Thrones, I imagine most of you can guess what the tagline would be. Or The Hunger Games has a very distinct tagline that you would see on the back cover of every single of 3 or 4, however many books there are. 3 books, 4 movies, right? Yeah, Hollywood. So that tagline is optional. None of these books actually use a tagline. Though if the middle one, The Last Prince of Atlantis Chronicle Book 1, that is the title, and it's using it in the same way you would normally use a tagline. The blurb is that chunk of text that kind of builds up the book, gets you excited about it, introduces your protagonist, builds some emotion. You don't want to do a synopsis so much. It should be like an abbreviated elevator pitch. It's hitting the emotional heights of the book, especially the first third to quarter. Anything emotional and important that's going to happen early that you want to get them excited about, and then introducing our character and potentially the problem, but do it briefly. I love the social web links. The middle book there has them very prominently. And then on Brooke Warner's on the far right, they're actually lower left with her author info, which is a great way to do it. Pair that with your author info or bio. You don't have to do a lot. The book on the far left, that entire bottom piece is his author bio and his information, but it's because it's a book, that he's a nonfiction writer. It's important that you know his qualifications to understand why you should be reading his book. Whereas the middle one, his author info is literally just his name with his website and his social links. And that it's a fiction author. You know what he's writing based on what he writes. You don't necessarily need to know more about him. You just need to know how to get to his website, to read his blog, or get into the expanded universe of his world, or read more books, or maybe he's got some web comics that go along with this story, that's something to supplement it. You don't need to know the whole bio there. You just need to know how to get to the next step. Testimonials. You'll see that on Brooke's book on the far right. She's got 4 of them. Those are mostly for nonfiction. I honestly wouldn't say it's a bad idea if you're doing a nonfiction book to completely eschew the blurb and just do testimonials, though that's very common for nonfiction. And then the publisher info, ISBN. You'll see on the far left, this gentleman has very kindly put the Lulu logo on the back cover. Not necessary, but a lot of times if you do publish with a professional publisher, they will put a little block of information about the publishing house and their contact info. And then of course you need the ISBN. Bottom right towards the spine, you want it to be about a 1/4 inch up from the bottom and about a 1/2 inch in from the spine. That's an entirely estimated distance, but thereabouts, so that it's got some space. Give it a little white space around it. I actually think on the one on the left where the green comes right up to the barcode is a little tight. I would give it a little white space so that it just kind of stands out. It needs to be separate from the cover because it's a necessary evil for your book cover. And you'll notice self-publishing, our center cover there, center back cover, doesn't have one. It's not sold through distribution. This author sells it themselves through their website and through Lulu, so they don't need an ISBN. They didn't choose to use that space. My guess is they probably do publish through a distributor and they just reuse that cover. So they save the space there. But in theory, you could use that space for something else.
Awesome. Thank you, Paul. And I want to note that as well, one of the things I really like about Brooke Warner's is although she uses the same image continuously, she has that kind of, shadow box, if you will, or that kind of white outline so the text is really legible on the back. So another thing to think about is that you can continue the image, but adding these elements will kind of make it cohesive and then yet still easy for the reader to read.
Yeah, absolutely. That the far left cover with the green does the same thing where that pattern wraps. But he's chose to make it stand out even more by, eliminating all the opacity in his text box.
Yeah, so I think that's a great tip to do that. So this next one is the anatomy of a great cover. I'm going to try to buzz through this as fast as I can because we also have a demo at the end and I want to leave time for questions. So really quickly, this is a book by Tisha Morris. So Tisha is a Lulu author and she's also actually on our partners page. So you can find her if you're interested in working with her. But this is her book that she created. Was that a sneeze? Bless you. So this was her book that she created. This was originally traditionally published. Then she was able to get the rights back from her publisher. And when I talked to her about it, she was like, I was so happy to do that because I hated the cover they made me. So this is the cover she created as an independently published author. And I wanted to use it as an example because it really combines all of the things we've talked about. So clear title and author name, you see it immediately. She has elements in there, the paintbrush, the chair, the window, but they're not distracting. It all flows really well. The color palette that she's using and fonts are consistent across the spine and across the text. The color palette is a great exemplification of getting you excited. It's calming, it's exciting, it's empowering, I think, which is all the things you kind of want when you're going to tackle kind of getting rid of clutter or kind of feng shuiing your house. So I think that was a really smart choice as well. At the top, she has reputable and relevant reviews. So Paul talked about this in the last slide. For fiction authors, especially if you're starting out, sometimes it really won't always have that oomph that it might have for an author who's been around for a little bit longer, whose work is more well known. So Tisha was able to get some really good reviews here. So Move Your Stuff, Change Your Life is a really important and prominent book in kind of the feng shui world. So having that author being able to vouch for her book is huge. Having it on the front cover is a great move. And then on the back, she has another from a well-known author in this space. So again, she really highlights really wonderful reviews that are, again, really relevant. So if you have reviews from authors that are well-known, that have that name recognition, put them on there. If not, maybe wait, until you get a few more books in and you're able to get that. So moving to the back cover, you see that she has her author bio, again, playing with the same color palette and really distinct with her website on there. She's using this as a lead magnet, which I'm not going to get too much into, but if you are a nonfiction author, doing something like this for your book can be an amazing way to drum up business. And then, as Paul was just talking about, she has, I called it a through line, but it's a tagline as well. So she has that, your home is the key to a successful, holistic life. So that's her tagline. She has it right there at the top. And then her back cover blurb, which is just a short summation of what to expect in the book. So again, this is kind of all the things we talked about combined into one. This is, of course, a nonfiction example, but the basic elements are going to be the same. So if you have a clear title and author name, you have a good spine, because, I mean, again, think about it. We all want that cover out spot in the bookstore, but worst case scenario, your book is tucked in and somebody has to look at the spine. You want to be able to get some of that character out through that little piece of real estate as well. Again, great back cover blurb and author bio. So she's kind of nailing it in every aspect there. Also, you can pick up this book on lulu.com. Okay, so let's get covered. So this is what we talked about. This is just a really quick, I wanted to show this to illustrate just how the discrepancy between what we see from independent authors and bestsellers. So I don't think I need to tell anyone which side is bestsellers and which side has been done from independent authors. So this, there's a publication called Book Life that I get regularly. It is for self-published authors from Publishers Weekly, and you can advertise your book in there. And so on the right-hand side of your screen, I just pulled this from the latest edition, and this is pretty par for the course. So, you know, some of these, you know, not terrible, they're not great. Some are confusing. You don't really get a clear representation of what the books are about at a glance, which is really key. Moving to the other side, you can see how drastic it is when you take note of these elements that we've discussed and really implement them well, what you can do, you know, with all these things working in concert together. Okay, so this is our last bad cover. This is mine. So yeah, so I'm making this beach read, this just really light, airy romance novel for your summer while you're on the beach, nothing too heavy. So this is something that we, again, see a lot of authors fall into, is you want to use a realistic photo, but maybe the typography is wrong. This typography looks like, you know, it's going to be like a sci-fi, like who knows where this beach is. It could be anywhere. Flip-flops, I mean, they're literally barefoot at the water. So, I mean, all of it is just really hitting you over the head with what this book is about in the worst possible way. Also this cartoon dolphin, which is kind of ridiculous. So I wanted to kind of put this together because at the end we'll see, you know, what I was able to kind of recreate in Canva using sort of the same book, essentially. So if you're not familiar with Canva, and I apologize as I try to speed through this, but if you're not familiar with Canva, it's a design tool. So if you go to canva.com, you can see they have an incredible library of fonts, graphics, templates that you can use to create everything from videos to social media posts to posters, flyers, cards even. But at Lulu, we're using it for the power to design book covers. So on this next slide, I'm going to play this video for you. And basically what I'm doing here is going through the process of uploading my interior file, which will be the first step when you're creating your book on Lulu. You'll upload your interior file. And then once it's uploaded, it'll normalize and all of those things. And once you have your interior normalized and it's in there, then you'll be able to put in your book specifications. So some will auto-populate. As you can see, it already put in that it was a 6x9, 84 pages. Yes.
Sorry to interrupt you. I think your screen share just stopped.
Oh, no. All right, let me see.
Sorry about that. That might have been me. I was trying to toggle my audio, and I might have clicked the screen share button.
No worries. Let me start again. Can you see it moving now?
No.
Okay. All right. Well, that's not great. Lauren, are you seeing anything in the chat? If anyone can see my screen playing, let me know. Just give me a yes or no.
It doesn't look like it. No.
Okay. All right. Let me try something else here. Let's see. Bear with me for a second. Let's see if I can play it this way. So can y'all see this playing now?
Nope.
No, you can't. No one can see this video play. Okay. All right. So what we're going to do now then is not do this. I'm going to stop screen sharing. And what I'll do is send out this demo to everyone who signed up today for the webinar. I'm not sure why it would not be playing. I'll try one more thing.
I look like I have it. Do you want to just send me the slide deck?
I think that the video might be too big for me to send through. Let's see. I'm going to try screen sharing one more time and see if I can get this to go.
Oh, we got something now.
You see it?
Yep.
Okay. Oh, that's just me. Okay. All right. Can you see this now?
We can still see your screen. It looks like we're looking at your desktop files.
Oh, let me delete that so it's not incriminating. All right. Okay. So I'm having an issue with getting the video to play for some reason. I'm not sure why, but what I can do is just kind of go through. Let's see, we've got, I'll just go through and share my screen and go to Lulu, and then I'll see if I can hop in and do it that way. But while I'm kind of getting this pulled up, do we have any questions, Lauren, that would be kind of easy to answer? It would take a brief explanation.
We've actually been going through. We've been getting some great questions in the chat. But I've been doing my best to keep up with them while you're talking. So I think we're good on questions.
All right, nice. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen again, and we'll see what we can see here. And let's see, hopefully this will give you an idea of what we have going on. All right, sharing my screen one more time. Okay. All right, so do you see that I am at Lulu?
Yep.
Y'all see that? Okay. All right, so what I've done here is just gone into my account and this project, Barefoot at the Beach, Barefoot on the Beach. So you can see that my interior file has been uploaded. I've got all my specs picked out. So black and white standard, cream paper. I'm going to go paperback. I'm a fan of matte covers, so that's what I'm going to go with. And then you get your per unit cost. So that's great. But then also, if you want to use Canva to create your cover, you can come down to where we design our covers and then go to Cover Creator Powered by Canva. So I've already created my cover. You can see here that I kind of redid based on that kind of horrendous sort of realistic photo cartoon dolphin. But I will hop into Canva and let's see if I can get in here and show you what this looks like. So when you go into the Canva interface, you'll have to either create or log into your account. So I would recommend creating an account, and then they have a Canva Pro, which will give you access to all the elements. That's really helpful. And you can sign up and get it for free for like 30 days. So if you know that you're going to be working on your cover and you're going to finish it within a couple weeks, go ahead and go pro, unlock those extra elements. So you can see over here that this is what I created. This is kind of what I turned the Barefoot at the Beach into. And so I'll walk you through quickly kind of how I did that. So I knew that I was dealing with a beach theme. So you can come into the elements, search. And from here, I mean, you can see they have such a tremendous library, even videos, GIFs, which are, obviously useless for a book cover. But they have a tremendous library of different elements and ideas to either get your inspiration going or, find exactly what you're looking for. So you can see that I ended up going with this image that's, a graphic image, I would say, or, an illustration rather than a realistic beach photo. So I love that vibe. I felt like it really gave off those beach read kind of feels. And then I felt like a font. I knew that I wanted a script font. So after dragging and dropping the image in, which was as easy as clicking on it and then fitting it to my template here. After doing that, I just decided to pick a font. And again, I wanted to use something script. So this Merry Christmas was the first thing that came up. And so I love that. I was like, this fits. I like it. You just click on it. Immediately, it'll drop into your cover. And then you'll be able to manipulate it, move it around. You'll probably want to uncouple it since these are stuck together right now, but you can ungroup them, change the font, change the color with all these elements over here. So another thing that I wanted to share. So after you kind of get your font picked out, you can see what I did with it here. And then I just felt like, okay, let's get some other stuff going on. So if you want to add elements like I did, Barefoot at the Beach is the name of the book. So I thought, let's throw a lady on there that is laying on the beach. So that'll kind of give it the feel that I'm looking for. So go back up to elements. Let's see. I think I did lady on beach towel or woman on beach towel. Yeah. Again, so a ton of options for you there based on what you're looking for. I mean, you can get really granular with this.
Am I still here?
I'm sorry?
Anybody in the chat, can you hear me?
Am I not being heard?
Oh, yes. Now we can hear you. Maybe it was Paul's internet that went out.
Oh, gosh. Yeah. Hopefully everyone could hear and see what I'm doing. But again, I will send out the video recording that I did. We'll figure out a way to put that up so that you guys can see me walk through this in a bit more cohesive way than what I'm doing right now. Either way, so you can see that, we have these elements here. So when you see pro, that just means you want a pro account or you can try it for free and get them for free. But some of these elements cost anything from like $1. They go up from there, but a lot of them just have that $1 price tag. So again, pretty affordable. So you can pick out your elements. For the text on the spine, you'll want to just grab your text and rotate it. And then I did a little back cover here. I would not recommend going with something like this. I would definitely say, as we've seen in our examples, to get a little bit more in depth with what you're doing. But I just wanted to be able to show everybody what it looks like and how to implement these things. So again, you can go to text, grab your heading, subheading, whatever you want, find the right font, and then play around with it. I mean, I think that's the best thing about this tool is you can play around with so many different things. So once you have an idea of how you want it to look and you feel pretty good about it, the last step is going to be grabbing that template that you got once you put in your interior file. So grabbing that cover template that you downloaded and then uploading it to Canva. You can just drag and drop it from your downloads into this upload an image piece and then click on it. So then you're going to want to connect this to the top of your cover, drag it down so you can make sure that it is the same size. And then this little button over here is going to allow you to make the transparency either more or less. So you're going to drag it down so it's pretty transparent and you can see where your text is falling within the parameters of your cover. So you can see all of your little lines here. You know, this obviously is the very safe space. If you're using a barcode, this is where you're going to want to put it. I've got my spine lined up pretty well. I'm pretty happy with that. Text looks good. This little lady, I'm not too worried about her. I think she'll be okay with the trim and everything. But this is sort of, as you get into the darker lines of the template, you're going to want to be aware of that and just make sure that nothing's going to get cut off. So I'm happy with this. I think everything looks good. So I'm going to remove the template and then you just click use cover. At that point, Canva will go through, they're preparing your design. It'll go back to Lulu to upload. And one of the great things, I think I'll say the preview. So one of the great things about this is while the file is normalizing and everything is going through the process, once it's normalized, it'll come down here to the bottom and you'll be able to see, again, all of the trim lines and how your book is going to look. So this is a great tool. And if you click through, I used a public domain text for this. So Alice in Wonderland, you can click through and see how everything is working together, make sure everything's laid out. But since today's webinar is about covers, that's what we'll look at today. So that was, again, super quick and dirty explanation or showcase of what our Canva Cover Tool can do. It's really powerful, a ton of variations, a ton of elements in there that you can use and play around with. Again, I would recommend once you get what you're happy with, take it down, download it, share it with some folks, get some feedback before you finalize it, order that proof copy, make sure you're feeling good about it. All right, so I'm going to stop sharing for a second. I do have just a few more slides that I wanted to share as we close out today. I don't know if there are any other questions to answer while I'm going back to my PowerPoint, but feel free, Lauren or Paul, to hop in with those. All right, so the last thing I'm going to share today is going to be something we are pretty excited about. And that is coming up. All right, so this is the video I tried to show that didn't work, but our Canva Cover Contest. So if you have been able to follow along with me, even through these last few minutes where I was jumping around all over the place, then you have a good idea of our tool, what you can do with it, the covers you can make with it. We would love to invite you to join our Canva Cover Contest. So this officially launches on Friday, but all of you can check out our page and enter your covers. If you've already made one, maybe if you are just a wizard, then you can go ahead and enter it in. So our Canva Cover Contest officially, again, starts Friday and runs through August 22nd, but you can submit now. So you can submit your Canva cover for a chance to win up to $500. So the way that it will work is you will publish your project on Lulu with a Canva cover, upload the cover, send us the URL to where the book is on Lulu. And once the contest ends, we at Lulu will go through all the fantastic entries that we get. We will award a first place prize of $500 plus Lulu swag, second place prize of $300 plus Lulu swag, and the third place prize of $200 plus Lulu swag. Pretty exciting, I know, thrilling. So if you want to grab some cash and some Lulu swag, then go to contest.lulu.com and enter. So again, it'll go through August 22nd. Gives you plenty of time to play around with the tool and see what you can create, get really creative and have fun with it. And you can check out all of our terms and conditions on the website. So that is the last thing I'm going to leave you with. And of course, if there's anything we can help with, I know we have a couple minutes left. I'll see if we may have lost Paul or Lauren, but I'll see if there are any other questions. Okay, awesome. So if you want to follow us, we are at lulu.com on all the social media channels. Again, we did a great webinar with Bailey Designs Books a couple weeks ago that is on our YouTube channel. If you want to check that out and hear from an actual cover designer, what best practices are, what to look for, how to work with a cover designer, definitely check that out. All right. I'm going to stop sharing now. Can you guys still see my screen? Gonna guess not. Okay. All right, cool. So just a couple minutes left. If there are any other questions, then let me know. Let's see. Shantae loves that we teamed up with Canva. Thank you. We love it too. It's pretty amazing. We're excited about that, and I think it's amazing. All right. So again, if anyone joined late, we will send this out all together. The complete recording to everyone that signed up. We'll also be sending out the replay, but we'll also have it on our YouTube channel. So Catherine, your question, can you watch again? You absolutely can. So thanks everybody so much for tuning in. If we don't have any other, okay, let's see. So Jen says, if I sell on Lulu, can I also sell on my website? So yes, the great thing about Lulu is we do have some options for you where you can sell through the lulu.com bookstore. You can also use our app for Shopify or our print API and integrate right into your own website. So those are some great solutions. You can go to lulu.com and look at sell on your site, and you can see our direct sales options that we have available there. Irvin says, any tips for a black hole on Canva? I do not know what that means exactly, but Irvin, when we post this on our YouTube channel, if you have any questions about that, or if you can be a bit more specific with what you mean there, drop that in the comments on our YouTube channel, and we'll be happy to follow up with more information as we can. All right. Will you guys add Etsy? Is a question from Sean. We're working on it. So our long-term goal is to increase all of our plugins and all of the platforms that we work with and that we can play with. So more will be on the horizon. I don't know if Etsy is on there specifically on our list yet, but we are keeping our options and our eyes open. So we'll definitely look into that. So that's a good question. Thank you, Sean. Let's see. And Chanel is saying tips on hyperlink. So I would say if you're asking about putting hyperlinks on book covers, obviously, you know, we can't, technology hasn't advanced to that point yet. But I would just say if you have a website or social channels, you know, as we saw on some of our examples, then we have, you know, folks that'll put their website or their social handles, and that is completely appropriate. And we would highly encourage that. You have a bit more flexibility with things like that in ebooks. But for print books, I think just putting your website, obviously, you don't want to have like a ton of words or letters or links or backslashes. You want it to be pretty concise so it's digestible. So that's something to keep in mind. But links, social handles are definitely great for back cover matter. Oh, Irvin, how to add a black hole in Canva. I think that you can do shapes, and then I would just recommend filling it in with black if that's what you're looking for. But there's a ton of ways that you can kind of add depth to things or outlines or shadows. So I would just recommend playing around with it. I mean, especially if you use that Canva Pro, then you can have that free trial, and kind of the options are endless. So just get in there and play around. You won't be penalized for making an ugly cover. No one has to know but you. Let's see. Paul, if you are still online, Shanna has a question about resizing the ISBN to make it smaller. I know that we provide the ISBN you can download and then upload to your cover. I don't really have any other, I don't know, suggestions on that. Paul, do you have any insights on ISBN sizing?
The size that we provided at, which I don't remember exactly what the specs are off the top of my head, is what's considered the standard for, I think, Ingram Content Group's sizing. So we just match, and I'm assuming they're just using whatever Bowker's standard is too. So it's very standard what we offer. That said, it can be resized. It's an image that we provide you, an image file, so you can just resize it manually using, Canva or Photo, if you've got Pro, or Photo P or something like that to resize it, and then paste it into your back cover to the size that you need. I would hesitate to get much smaller than like 1 inch by a 1/2 inch. It's got to be big enough to be scannable, legible, stuff like that. But yeah, it's yours, so you can resize it as you need to.
All right, Jim is asking, we have to upload the barcode with the ISBN. I think they come together, right?
Yeah, when you use our Canva integration, it applies it, I think, after you kind of click back to Lulu, if you've added an ISBN as part of the publishing process.
Okay, awesome. All right, I am going to just add our contest landing page in here, contest.lulu.com. So if you are interested, if your interest has been piqued, if you like money, then please enter our contest, free to enter, and you have an opportunity to win some money, which is great. I dropped it in the chat right there at contest.lulu.com. So feel free to check us out. Terry, will this webinar be saved and posted? It will. Absolutely. Everyone will get a recording and we'll put it on our YouTube channel. And I think that we are about done here. So if Paul or Lauren, if you guys have any closing thoughts, now's the time.
I want to apologize again for working up your video there in the middle, but
yeah, no, I don't know what's going on with video. I apologize, everyone. I don't know what happened with that, but then I did it real time. We did it live, so even better. All right, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Paul and Lauren, thank you so much for coming along on the ride with me. And again, keep an eye out on our YouTube channel. This will be there. You'll also, in about 24 hours, be getting an email from Webinar Jam with the replay, so keep an eye out for that. And thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful, wonderful Wednesday. Thanks so much for tuning in. Best of luck if you enter our contest, and have a great day.